Mrs. Lucia was 71 years old, was all about her daily routine. Breakfast is sacred, she used to say, and her breakfast had a fixed star. Eggs, sometimes boiled, sometimes scrambled, sometimes in the form of a quick omelet. It was practical, it was cheap, it was filling, and it also gave that feeling of, I'm doing the right thing, because everyone has heard that eggs are high-quality protein. But there's a trap here, and it's a sneaky one. When something becomes automatic for many years, we stop noticing the details, and details, after 60, are what separate a good habit from a dangerous one. Her story started to change because of a routine checkup. No drama, no cinematic scare. It was that common moment many people know. The paper comes out of the printer, you look at the numbers, and the doctor pauses before speaking. The results showed that something wasn't going well. And when they reviewed her diet, the classic phrase came up. I eat well, almost always eggs in the morning. The problem is that eating eggs is not just one thing. There's the way you store them. There's the time they stay out of the fridge. There's how well they're cooked. There's what goes on the plate with them. There's the number of times per week. And there's a very common belief among those over 60, thinking that eggs alone solve the protein part. And then the person repeats, without variety. And that's where many people get into trouble without realizing it. Today, I'm going to show you the 10 most common mistakes people over 60 make with eggs. Simple, everyday mistakes that can seriously affect the heart, blood pressure, digestion, and even increase the risk of foodborne illness. I've organized them in order, starting with those that seem harmless and ending with the ones that can actually become serious problems. And pay attention. Some of these mistakes are so common that I bet someone is doing it right now while listening to me. But the good news is, this list isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to protect you. Because yes, you can keep eating eggs just the right way. At the end, I'll give you a short checklist so you can take a quick look and adjust your routine without complications. Now let's get straight to the point, starting with mistake number 10, which many people make thinking they're being more hygienic, and end up doing the opposite. Mistake number 10 often fools people because it seems like a matter of care, hygiene, attention. Many people get home from the store, open the egg carton, and the first thing they do is take them to the sink and wash them one by one before storing. The intention is good, but the effect can be exactly the opposite. What almost no one knows is that eggs have a natural protective coating on the shell. It's an invisible film that seals the pores and prevents bacteria from getting inside. When you wash the egg before storing, especially under running water, you remove that protection. The shell becomes more vulnerable and any bacteria present can enter much more easily. After age 60, the body no longer reacts the same way to foodborne illnesses. What might be just a minor discomfort for a young person can cause severe diarrhea, dehydration, and even hospitalization for an elderly person. That's why this detail makes such a difference. The safe way is simple. Store the eggs as they came without washing. If one is visibly dirty, the best thing is to clean it only when you're about to use it, under running water, and immediately cook it. Never wash them all and put them back in the fridge. Staying on the storage topic, we come to mistake number 9, which is found in most refrigerators, storing eggs in the door. The fridge door is convenient, easy to grab from, but it's the worst place for eggs. Every time the door opens, that area experiences temperature fluctuations. Warm air enters, cold air leaves. This happens several times a day. This constant change promotes moisture formation on the eggshell, which encourages bacterial growth. Also, the door gets more impact. Opens, closes, shakes. Small cracks may appear on the shell without you noticing, and those micro cracks are open doors for contamination. The safest place for eggs is inside the fridge, on the middle or lower shelves, toward the back, where the temperature is more stable. And always inside the original carton, which protects from light, from odors of other foods, and from impact. It may seem like a small detail, but when repeated over years, it becomes a cumulative risk. Mistake number 8 already involves preparation and often meets resistance, because it involves personal taste, eating eggs with soft yolks. Runny yolk eggs are something many people love, but after 60, this habit can become dangerous. The problem isn't the flavor, it's the safety. Raw or undercooked eggs can contain bacteria like salmonella. This bacteria doesn't change the smell or taste of the food, so the egg may look perfect and still be contaminated. In older people, the infection tends to be more intense and harder to manage. Fever, vomiting, diarrhea, and weakness can appear quickly. And dehydration in elderly people happens much more easily, especially in those already taking medication for blood pressure, heart, or diabetes. The safe way is to cook eggs thoroughly. The whites should be completely firm, and so should the yolks. Fully cooked eggs drastically reduce the risk. In recipes that traditionally use raw eggs, like homemade sauces, it's best to use pasteurized eggs. It's not about fussiness, it's about protection. Mistake number 7 happens a lot at family lunches, long breakfasts, or special occasions, leaving cooked eggs out of the fridge for too long. Boiled eggs, scrambled omelets, pies, all these, once cooked, can't be left out at room temperature for hours. There's a temperature range where bacteria multiply quickly, and the longer the food stays there, the higher the risk. Many people think, but it was just made, it's fine. But after 2 hours out of the fridge, the risk starts to rise a lot. On hot days, that time should be even shorter. For people over 60, the care needs to be doubled. A contaminated food can cause a much more serious condition than just a passing discomfort. The practical rule is clear. Finished eating leftover eggs or egg dishes, put them in the fridge. If you're going to serve it longer, you need to keep it hot, above a safe temperature. That egg pie forgotten on the table to snack on later is a common trap. Now we come to mistake number 6, which seems obvious but happens very frequently: ignoring the egg's expiration date. As the years go by, the sense of smell becomes less sharp. Taste also changes. That means relying only on the smell or appearance of the egg is not a good idea. An egg might not smell bad and still be unfit for consumption. Many people think it's in the fridge, so it lasts. But time counts. Eggs age, even when refrigerated. And the closer or past the expiration date, the higher the chance of bacterial growth. A simple test helps a lot. Place the egg in a glass of water. If it sinks and lies flat, it's fresh. If it sinks but stands upright, it can still be used, but soon. If it floats, it should be discarded immediately. Another important precaution is to never use eggs with cracked shells. Even a small crack can allow microorganisms to enter. For those who live alone or eat eggs less often, buying smaller cartons is a smart decision. It avoids waste and reduces risk. These first 5 mistakes have something in common. They don't seem serious. They're everyday habits learned over a lifetime. But after 60, the body changes. The organism's response changes, and what once went unnoticed starts to take a toll. Now that we've talked about mistakes related to hygiene, storage, and safety, in the next section, we'll get into the mistakes that affect the heart, cholesterol, blood pressure, and eating routine. And that's when we get into those habits many people keep thinking they're getting stronger, when in fact, they're overloading the body. Let's keep going. Now we get into the mistakes that don't show up right away, but start weighing on you from the inside, slowly, like a leaky faucet. These are the habits that seem normal because so many people do them, because it's always been that way, because they're tasty, because they're practical. But after 60, the body no longer has the same safety margin. The heart feels it more, circulation feels it more, blood pressure rises more easily, and the way we put our plate together starts to matter much more. Mistake number 5 is cooking eggs with too much fat, especially excess butter. A lot of people learned all their lives that good scrambled eggs are those bright yellow shiny ones with butter left over in the pan. And I get it. It adds flavor, adds aroma, gives that feeling of real food. The problem is that when this becomes routine, you're not just eating eggs. You're eating eggs plus a daily dose of saturated fat every single day, and that takes a toll on the body over time. After 60, many people already have a higher tendency toward high cholesterol, high blood pressure, or sensitive circulation. And then what was a simple breakfast turns into a daily sum of things that get in the way. It's not that butter is forbidden, it's about the quantity and frequency. One thing is to use a small piece for flavor. Another is cooking drenched in it every day. The adjustment here is very down to earth. First, using a non-stick pan helps a lot because you, Dante, need to swim in fat to keep it from sticking. Second, if you're going to use oil, prefer a small amount, just enough to grease. Third, vary the preparation. Boiled eggs, well done, poached eggs, baked omelets, scrambled with a spoonful of olive oil. All these reduce the fat load of the dish without taking eggs out of your life. And if you love the taste of butter, a simple trick is to use just a little at the end, just to add aroma, instead of using a lot of butter to cook. Mistake number 4 is overdoing the number of eggs per week, especially when it becomes a daily habit. This mistake happens in the most innocent way. A person starts eating eggs because they're refilling, because it's easy, because it's cheap, because it provides protein. Then it becomes routine, every morning, sometimes at night too. And before you realize it, eggs have become the center of the diet. The point here isn't to scare or demonize. It's to understand that every day is different from once in a while. A food can be good as part of a balanced whole, and it can become a problem when it turns into automatic repetition. Many older adults already have factors that require attention, pressure that rises easily, diabetes, family history of heart disease, test results that are no longer perfect. In those cases, excess whole eggs may not be the best daily choice, because the yolk concentrates cholesterol and other substances that in some people weigh more in the blood. So what's the practical solution? Without going to extremes. First, think in terms of weekly quantity, not just per day, instead of every day. Set a limit that makes sense for your reality and for what your healthcare provider recommends. Second, use a simple strategy to maintain protein. Alternate whole eggs with egg whites. The white is basically protein, and many people stay satisfied using a mix, like one whole egg with 1 or 2 extra whites. You keep the taste, increase protein, and reduce the yolk load. Third, vary your protein sources throughout the week. Because when eggs become every day, they stop being a food and become a crutch, and the body needs variety. Mistake number 3 is not considering medications and how diet interacts with them. Here, I won't go into a complicated list, because the idea is to keep it simple. But this mistake is real. Many people take medication every day and never talk about their diet with their doctor. The person changes their diet from one week to the next, increases or decreases a specific food, and doesn't realize that this can affect how the treatment works. A common example is someone managing cholesterol. They take the medication properly but maintain a routine that goes against the goal. It's not that the medication doesn't work, it's that the overall picture isn't helping. Another example is medications that require dietary consistency. Some people eat eggs every day, one week, then none the next, then go back. These sudden changes, when medication is involved, can mess up control. And there's an even simpler point: timing. Sometimes the problem isn't the egg itself, but the timing. Some medications need spacing from certain foods. Some antibiotics can have their absorption affected by specific meals. You can't generalize because it depends on the medication and the person. But one safe rule stands: if you take medication daily, major diet changes should be discussed. The practical solution here is maintain consistency and inform. No need to obsess. Just get into the habit of saying, look, I eat eggs almost every day, or I want to reduce eggs when you re-add a consultation or follow-up. And if you start a new medication, ask directly, is there any dietary care I should take? Eggs, milk, coffee, anything. That simple question avoids a lot of headaches. Mistake number 2 is pairing eggs with dangerous companions on the plate. This one is a top offender because it lives in the traditional breakfast. The problem isn't the egg alone. The problem is the combo that comes with it: bacon, sausage, fatty ham, very salty cheese, bread with butter. Sometimes all of that together. And to top it off, a bunch of salt and little fiber. When you combine this kind of plate, you create a meal that's heavy for the heart and for blood pressure. And after 60, the body responds more strongly to excess salt and fat. Some people eat this and spend the rest of the day bloated, with higher blood pressure, with heartburn, feeling heavy, and Dante even make the connection, because it's always been that way. The adjustment here is more about building the plate than cutting out pleasure. If you want to eat eggs, great, but try to change what's on the side. Instead of bacon and processed meats, use vegetables. Sounds simple, and it is. Tomato, onion, bell pepper, spinach, zucchini, mushrooms, whatever you've got. Eggs go with almost everything and taste great. Plus, vegetables bring fiber and volume, help with fullness, and make the meal lighter on the body. Another helpful swap: if you're going to eat bread, choose a more whole grain one, or at least cut back on the butter. You don't have to eliminate it, just reduce. And when you can, add fruit. A simple fruit already changes the meal by adding fiber and micronutrients. And if you like that feeling of something savory on the side, you can go for less aggressive options. Avocado, a drizzle of olive oil, a small piece of less salty cheese, or even fish some days, if that works for you. The idea is, don't turn eggs into an excuse to load the plate with ultra-processed foods. This mistake number 2 is the one that trips up a lot of people who say, "But I only eat 2 eggs." Yes, but those 2 eggs come with an army of things that make it worse. Now comes mistake number 1, the most common of all, and maybe the sneakiest, believing that eggs alone solve your protein needs, and so repeating eggs as if they were the only answer. A lot of people over 60 have a legitimate concern, not losing strength, not losing muscle mass, not getting weak, and then eggs seem like the perfect hero. But here's the catch. Eggs help, but they don't work miracles on their own. First, because the protein requirement at this stage of life is usually higher than most people think, and 2 eggs at breakfast, while good, don't cover the whole day. The person eats 2 eggs and thinks they've got their protein covered, but then has a small lunch, a very light dinner, and by the end of the day, the body didn't get enough to maintain muscle energy and recovery. Second, because variety matters. Each food brings different things. Fish brings good fats. Beans and lentils bring fiber. Yogurt and cheese can help with calcium and convenience. Chicken and lean meats bring other nutrients. Nuts and seeds bring vitamin E and better fats. If you stick only to eggs, you limit what your body receives. And there's a third point many people ignore: distributing protein throughout the day. Instead of putting it all at breakfast and almost nothing later, the body usually benefits when it receives a reasonable amount at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This is especially important after 60, when maintaining muscle becomes a savings account for independence. Muscle isn't just about looks. It's about getting up from a chair, climbing stairs, carrying groceries, staying balanced. So what's the simplest, most realistic adjustment? Turn eggs into part of the rotation, not a crutch. You can eat eggs, yes, but alternate. One day eggs, another day yogurt with oats and seeds, another day cheese with fruit, another day a protein shake with something you tolerate well, another day beans for lunch with a generous portion. No need to get fancy, just vary. And when you do eat eggs, think about the complete plate: eggs with veggies, with a better slice of bread, with fruit, with less salt, with less fat. And if you want to increase protein without overdoing whole eggs, use egg whites too. That adds volume and protein without raising the yolk content too much. See how, in the end, it's not about forbidding. It's about stopping the automatic repetition. If I could sum up these last 5 mistakes in one sentence, it would be this: eggs can be an ally, but they can't become an excuse for excess fat, excess repetition, and poorly built meals. And now that you've seen all 10 mistakes, you can look at your routine more clearly. What's really helping you, and what's getting in the way without you realizing it. In the next step, we'll wrap it up with a simple checklist, fridge and stove style, to help you adjust this easily in your daily life and keep eggs as a food, not a risk. Before we finish, let's tie it all together clearly, so this doesn't just become information, but turns into practical change in your kitchen. You saw that the mistakes with eggs aren't anything wild. They're common habits, repeated automatically. And it's exactly because they're common that they can be dangerous after 60, because the body doesn't forgive the same way anymore. So remember this idea. The problem is almost never the egg by itself. The problem is the whole picture. It's the way it's stored, the cooking method, the time out of the fridge, the weekly quantity, and what goes on the plate with it. Let's recap the key points. Straight up. First, safety comes before taste. Soft yolk eggs may be delicious, but the contamination risk isn't worth it at this stage of life. The safest route is to cook until firm. And if you're making a recipe that usually calls for raw egg, the right move is to use pasteurized egg. Second, eggs can't be forgotten out of the fridge. Leftover omelet, pie, boiled egg, scrambled. Store it. Family gatherings and food sitting out for hours seems normal. But that's exactly when many people get sick and don't understand why. Third, storing eggs in the fridge door and washing before storing are 2 habits that seem careful but increase risk. Best practice is to keep them in the original carton on an interior shelf at the back and wash only when about to use, if needed. Fourth, watch the quantity. When eggs become a daily thing, they stop being a choice and turn into an automatic routine. And automatic routines, over time, add up. Instead of thinking every day or never, think in the week. And if you want more protein, you can mix in egg whites and vary other sources. Fifth, the full plate matters. Eggs with veggies are one thing. Eggs with bacon, processed meats, excess salt, too much butter, and greasy bread are something completely different. Often what harms ice and tea, the egg the team that comes with it. And lastly, the most common mistake, thinking eggs solve everything. Eggs help, but the body needs variety to age well. Varying protein is a simple way to care for your heart, gut, strength, and energy. Now, as promised, here's a simple checklist. You can save it, write it down, or even repeat it mentally when dealing with eggs. Storage: eggs on an interior shelf at the back in the original carton, never in the door. Washing: don't wash to store. If needed, clean only right before use. Cooking: whites firm and yolks firm. No undercooked eggs for 60+. Timing: food left out. If more than 2 hours pass, don't risk it. Store leftovers. Expiration: check the date. Avoid cracked shells and use the water test if in doubt. Fat: little oil, little salt, less butter when cooking. Quantity: don't make it every day. Think weekly consumption. Plate: prefer eggs with vegetables and real food. Avoid the combo with processed meats and too much salt. Variety: rotate protein sources during the week so you're not dependent on eggs. Medications: if you take meds regularly and will change your diet a lot, stay consistent and mention it to your doctor. If you apply just 2 or 3 of these changes, you already improve the safety and impact of this meal on your body. And the best part is, you, Dan, T, need to suffer or cut everything at once. It's simple routine adjustments that work because they avoid risks and reduce excess. And I want to leave you with a question to think about honestly. Which of these mistakes do you notice happens most in your house? Sometimes it's the fridge door. Sometimes it's the soft yolk. Sometimes it's the plate loaded with processed meats. Identifying one is already halfway there. If this content helped you, keep this checklist and come back to it when needed. Because in the end, taking care of your health after 60 isn't about doing difficult things. It's about avoiding the traps of habit and making simple, repeated choices that keep you strong, energetic, and safer in daily life.